Hey everybody, Dave Neal here, host of Bachelor Recap, a guy's review. As you see from the title of this video, today we're going to talk about the petition that's gaining some traction online to get Chris Harrison removed from the Bachelor franchise. I'm going to talk about which former contestants of The Bachelor are sort of promoting this petition, and it's picking up a lot of steam. We'll see if anything comes from it. And we'll talk about the interview between Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison that was aired on ExtraTv. It's a 13-minute interview. I encourage everybody to watch the actual interview before, listening to other people's comments about it, because, it's important to understand what we're all talking about here. In the interview, which, by the way, I made a video, it took me a couple hours to make, where I actually watched the interview and recapped it all for you guys, but the video was immediately blocked for copyright infringement, so I'm going to have to read some excerpts, some summarizing of the interview, try my best to be level-headed here, and we're also going to realize which contestants are outraged, disappointed in Chris Harrison, and all that. So the interview itself is focused around Rachael Kirkconnell, who is a rumored finalist on this season of The Bachelor. I'm not spoiling anything for you. I don't know how it ends, but it's been rumored all season long that she's one of the top contestants on the show. She, of course, is from Georgia, Forsyth County, which has a long history of segregation and, problematic, racism that's, just been inherent all over the country. It's in the South, it's in the North, it's in Canada. It's all over, guys. It's all over. So systematic racism, a conversation that's happening about all that, and how to move forward from that. That's what this conversation is all about, with respect to everybody that has had to deal with this. Some people leave comments and they go, Dave, I just want to watch The Bachelor to get away from it all. Well, the reason the Bachelor franchise is so successful is because it's a reflection of the human condition and where we are in the United States. So if you don't want to be a part of that conversation, that's your right. But just think about the privilege that might exist by not wanting to deal with it because it doesn't affect you. Think about that. And if you don't want to be a part of it, just click out of it, watch another video. You can go watch a video of lawyers that are, dressed up as kittens on Zoom. Whatever it is you want to do, you have that right. But for the rest of the people that want to be a part of this discussion, it's complicated. And what we have to remember, have empathy for others. Realize that just because an issue doesn't trigger me, doesn't trigger you, it doesn't mean it's not really important to everyone's well-being, equality, and unity, which I think is what we all want. We're just coming at it from different angles. Okay? So I can't play the video for you, so go watch it, but I will read. There's going to be a lot of reading in this video, so just bear with me. I'm going to read some excerpts from this 13-minute conversation. As I mentioned, Rachael Kirkconnell, she's a top contender on Match Game season, and she's liked photos of friends in front of Confederate flags, dressed up as Native American, and some people say, oh, this is no big deal, but that's how you feel about it. So let's dismiss how we feel about it, and let's just talk about collectively trying to be better, do better, and also reckon where we're coming from. Chris Harrison dug himself into a hole in this interview. I thought the interview between Rachel and Chris, they did agree on a lot. But as you'll see from some former contestants and people that have talked about it, there's a lot of issues to work through with it. So I'll start reading this for you. The good people over there on Reddit doing the Lord's work have compiled a recap of the interview. Rachel Lindsay asks Chris Harrison about the allegations attached to Rachael Kirkconnell. Chris says he hasn't spoken to her, but we need to have grace, understanding, compassion. People are tearing this girl's life apart, and until she speaks, he doesn't want to judge her. Chris claims he saw a picture of Rachel at a sorority party 5 years ago. Rachel Lindsay interjects and says the picture was from 2018 at an Old South antebellum party. It's not a good look. Chris jumps back and says, is it a good look in 2018 or is it not a good look in 2021? There's a big difference. Rachel Lindsay says, it's not a good look ever. She's celebrating the Old South. What would I represent if I went to that party? And this is partly where we differ, where people, which I've said myself, say, oh, times have changed. We didn't think of that back then. But Rachel Lindsay, as the first black bachelorette on the show, says, well, what if I was at the party? What would I think? So she's bringing a different perspective than what Chris Harrison would think as just as a white dude. Chris asks, would Rachael Kirkconnell have stopped and thought, this mansion stood for this? Guys, it's not woke that we are here. He says these girls just got dressed up, went to a party, and had a good time. I missed one line. Chris says that wasn't the case in 2018. He says 50 million people went to the Old South party in 2018. He claims he is not defending it and he didn't go to it. You know what? Being from New England, this old Yankee over here, to think that 50 million people went to an Old South party, I never even heard of this. I never even heard of it, Anyway, Rachel Lindsay says that's the problem. Some people didn't realize this type of party was wrong. Agrees there should maybe be some understanding because not everyone knows everything, and people have been learning this more in 2020. But what is super frustrating is that Rachael Kirkconnell has not spoken out. So it seems a lot of the wildfire that's been brewing within the season is no one's heard from Rachael Kirkconnell. And the question becomes, which we'll get into, is when should she talk? When is the right time to talk? Does she process it? Does she get a statement out? Immediately, what's the right moment? And that's what we're kind of, trying to figure out collectively. Rachel Lindsay goes on to say there is nothing contractually stopping Kirkconnell from speaking out. It is festering because she hasn't spoken out. Chris is mad because people come after Republicans just because of their voting registration. Rachel Lindsay agrees. All right, so they agree on this. You shouldn't go after people just because they vote one side or the other. That's what they agree on. You can leave a comment and let me know what you think. I totally understand the conflating, saying, well, if you vote a Republican, you're against my right to choose what I want to do with my body. I totally understand thinking that way, but also we have to realize that's not how half the country always thinks. So while we might think a certain way or you might think a certain way, that doesn't always apply to everyone else. So we have Chris Harrison and Rachel Lindsay agreeing right there. And it's important to respect where they agree and disagree. Chris says we didn't give time to Hannah Brown to have some perspective, see how it affects their life, and then speak on it. He thinks Kirkconnell will eventually speak and he will hear her out. He's referring to Hannah Brown saying the N-word while singing a rap song over last year during the beginning of the pandemic. Can you believe this pandemic's still raging on? It's like, what side of the pandemic? Oh, it was the beginning of the pandemic. That feels like 15 years ago she said that. But she made an apology. She did the PR run, and she vouched to do better. And, and I think she has. Time will tell, but let's move on. Rachel Lindsay says she thinks most people, including Chris, would speak out if something about them was being said that wasn't true. Chris says he gets trolled all the time. Chris asks what will be the reaction when Kirkconnell does speak. She won't be able to cure it, but reasonable people will understand. But reasonable people aren't on social media. So basically what he's saying is there's people that exist on social media, and then there's the collective. And he's not wrong. Social media only accounts, like Twitter only accounts for like 10% of the population, and only a small percentage of those people actually are having a conversation. So there is an elevation of voice when it comes to social media. Not that that's a problem, but there's plenty of people that read things, consume things, but never comment, and maybe their opinions are different. Chris says it's important to watch. It's important for people to watch this all play out, because where is the narrative of her falling in love with Matt, and where is that in this social conversation we're having? He rambles about where is it if she falls in love with a black man in all of this. So he tries to bring it back to promoting the show, which is very interesting. It's an interesting storyline, and we kind of hate that the whole storyline is based around this. But of course, a contestant who's been accused of being racist then could be a finalist with Matt James. It's very layered, the storyline. Chris adds, people may be right about Rachel at the end of the day, but he's going to give her grace for now, admits that he wasn't woke himself in 1970. So there's a lot to be said there. And again, I'm reading the recap that somebody wrote online. I wrote some info about it myself, but you know what? I really do encourage everyone to watch the interview yourself. There were plenty of points where Rachel and Chris agreed on, and I think the main point where they agreed is that these things take time, and the big issue that everyone has is that everyone's been forced to fill in the blanks. And by forced, I mean, social media asking people to pick a side to fill in the blanks of what they think, because no one's heard from Rachel. We've heard from her mom, her aunt, her cousin, her ex-best friend, but no one's heard from Rachel. So we really have to wait to hear from that. But I do understand how people don't necessarily want to hear Chris saying, give Rachael Kirkconnell grace. And I do know this is complicated. We're talking about two different Rachels here, but I think you guys can stick around for this. So Rachel Lindsay agrees with Chris that they should let Rachael Kirkconnell be the first to speak, because Rachel Lindsay asked Chris, why hasn't the Bachelor spoken about this? Chris did say that Rachael Kirkconnell was not at the Women Tell All ceremony. So that was actually a big kind of leak that he put into this whole interview. Rachael Kirkconnell not at the Women Tell All ceremony. So she won't be confronted as Lee was in previous seasons. I'll play the clip when Lee was confronted for his racist tweets. Now, Lee, if you guys remember a couple years ago, his tweets were racist. No denying that. He flat out apologized and all that. But a little different in this scenario because people are just waiting to hear what she has to say. All right, so let's move on with this. Tay Mocha, we all know Taylor Mocha, she said, my text last night, if you know, you know, I'm going to make a petition to fire him. Very fascinating. So now we're talking about making a petition to fire Chris after watching this interview. Again, I encourage you, don't make a judgment on what I just said. Watch the interview yourself. So much of the internet, so much of the news media cycle is based on us coming up with opinions from titles. Don't do that. Watch, and if you do leave a comment about how you feel about Chris based on the interview and you didn't watch it, well, shame on you because you're sort of fueling this fire of misinformation. So watch the interview and then make your decision after that. Ashley Spivey posted this on Instagram. It's a petition to have Chris Harrison removed from the Bachelor franchise. It had 894 signatures. I'll load it up in a minute and we'll see how many it has now. But let me tell you something. It's up there. There's a lot of people signing this petition. But it's still like a lawn chair being thrown off a cruise ship when you factor in the millions of people that actually watch the show. So it's still very small, but it's gaining some momentum today. It's worth discussing. Ashley Spivey, by the way, this font's going to kill me. Let me read a few things from Ashley Spivey's story. She said, hello, friends. Yes, I have seen the Chris Harrison video. We also talked about it a little last night on my live. A little on the live last night. I have approximately 200 messages asking me if I've seen it and my thoughts. I will give my thoughts later. I needed some coffee, but the real question here is, what are you going to do about it? If that video made you mad, I know that my work here has impacted you in the same way. But I can't even read this font. It's horrible. But now it's time for you to lead the way in making change. Make a story on your Instagram talking about why it upset you. Get your friends on board. Tweet about it at Bachelor ABC. So a couple more messages from her. She posted a swipe up. I have a lot of thoughts about the charged language he uses in this interview, and I will talk about it later. You know, Chris Harrison used language that has originated on the far right, like the woke police. I don't think there's anything woke about wanting equality. I don't think there's anything woke about holding people to their actions, to their past. But the problem here that we have it's that we haven't heard the full story, and until that happens, I don't think it's doing us justice waiting this long. You know, it's been six or 7 weeks since this story started to break, and we're just waiting on a response. You know, but that's the thing. We try to compare social media in real life to the court of law. The court of public opinion and the court of law, they're just different. You know, in the court of law, you get your trial, you get your evidence, this and that. And I kind of wish it was that way. Like, I wish all of this info broke out at the same time where then Rachel could respond. I wish that were the case. It's just not where we are. It's a product of social media. Ashley Spivey said, for me, words matter. Maybe it's because I read a lot. I love historical speeches, but really it's that I've always had a love for words. I try to be intentional with the words that I use because words can hold a lot of power and evoke emotions. Agree to that? Someone had responded to that in saying this is about Lee from the Bachelorette, who was on Rachel Lindsay's season, first Black Bachelorette. He was confronting Lee at Men Tell All for his racist tweets on Rachel's season in 2017. And that summer was the Unite the Right rally where a neo-Nazi drove his car into a crowd of counter-protesters and ended up killing a woman. That's all happened a little under a year before Rachel ended up at that Old South party. I guess racism is like a leap year or something, because Chris Harrison was saying, hey, look, we didn't know in 2018 what we know now. And look, I think the point of what he's trying to say, and I shouldn't speak for somebody else, but I think the idea is progress is happening in the right direction, and we're allowed to be upset that it's not happening faster. But I also don't know if being upset is going to move it along faster. Do you know what I mean? But I think we can all take whatever measures we can to educate each other, educate our friends, our grandparents, our moms, our cousins, whatever, about equality and about wanting equality and all that. So it was good to see Lee confronted at the Men Tell All, but just because he was confronted in 2017 doesn't mean that Rachael Kirkconnell has become, this, leader of equality in Forsyth County, Georgia in 2018. You know what I mean? Ashley said judge, jury, and executioner because that's the term that Chris Harrison used in the interview. Again, interesting words during Black History Month. You know who most statistically doesn't get a fair trial? Black men. Couldn't agree with you more here. You know, when slavery ended, and I don't have all the facts, but when slavery ended, they literally rewrote laws to enslave black men at a higher rate. We see it to this day with I lived in New York City with stop and frisk laws. You know, for every white guy carrying a stash of opioids in his pocket, heading down to Wall Street or doing whatever he's doing with his prescription medicine, a black guy's getting frisked and arrested for marijuana, which is now being profited by industries because it's becoming illegal. You know what I mean? So like this does exist, folks. This does exist. She said black people have been overrepresented on death row across the U.S., and killers of black people are less likely to face the death penalty than people who kill white people. Heavy stuff, folks. Heavy stuff, but you know, if there's any credit at all that goes to The Bachelor, it's what leads us into these conversations. I'm not giving them credit for things they intended to do. I think The Bachelor only cares about ratings and selling, dish soap to, advertisements or whatever they do. But either way, she said, since the death penalty resumed in 1977, 295 black defendants were executed for killing a white victim, but only 21 white defendants were executed for the killing of a black victim, even though black people are disproportionately the victims of crime. I'm well aware, as a pasty white guy in the middle of the winter, even in Southern California, I don't get much sun, very pasty. I'm well aware I might not be the messenger that the world needs right now, but I'm me, and maybe I relate. Maybe there's a guy in Iowa or Massachusetts, wherever you are, that relates to what I'm saying, and maybe the message gets through to you. So I think it's important for everyone to be having this conversation. Ashley says, I already wrote that one. So here's the petition to remove Chris Harrison from The Bachelor. And again, my view is not to remove Chris Harrison from the Bachelor franchise. My view is to keep on promoting these discussions. I think Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison had a very good discussion. And if he used a lot of the wrong words, I think it's good to mention that. It's good to highlight that. But I don't think canceling Chris Harrison from The Bachelor leads us closer into the right direction. That's my opinion. You're able to make your own opinion. So earlier it only had 700 views. Now let's click the refresh button. The goal was 5,000. Now the goal is up to 7,500. It's got 6,974, and people are signing this petition. Chris Harrison has a history of misogyny and racist behavior and racist sympathizing behavior. Again, a little charged. Luan Martinez started this petition to ABC. I mean, for sure. I mean, I don't even know how many signatures you would need to get their attention, but I think the idea is more about just creating as much bandwidth on the internet for them to do that. And also, even if this doesn't get Chris Harrison fired, I think it leads to good conversation. I think he can handle it. He's been, the center of the show. I think it comes along with when there are racist people that have lived on the show, Lee, other people with tweets that come out, I think someone has to be held responsible for platforming these people. So as Chris Harrison is the figurehead of the show, it's like, I'm not saying he should be the fall guy, but he needs to get as educated as possible so that he can have these conversations, and then we're not worried about him saying things like woke police or judge, jury, and executioner, but he's actually like elevating himself to that next level. It's interesting because I think Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison really do respect each other and give each other the benefit of the doubt in that conversation. But I also think, as we'll show some tweets that Rachel Lindsay made afterwards, that it didn't sit well with her after. So I think they can agree upon some things, but also those differences are still a very sort of glaring. A couple more of these tabs. Here's Rachel's recent comment following the Chris Harrison interview. Emma Gray said there will always be people who cross the line from fair criticism to harassment online, but there are plenty of Bachelor fans who have expressed upset over Rachel's past actions. This is Rachael Kirkconnell, past actions from a place of good faith and a love for the show. To pretend otherwise is so insulting. Emma said also, at the Rachel Lindsay is so generous in giving to this franchise. We do not deserve her. Then Rachel said, my days are numbered. I love good word economy as a stand-up comedian. Words not only have power, but used in the right way, they can be very cutting. In 4 words, she said, my days are numbered. I don't even know what that means. Is she willing to disassociate from The Bachelor? Is she going to boycott The Bachelor? I'm not really sure. So then Reddit said, after Chris Harrison's incredibly dismissive comments about Rachel's racist acts, I am done watching the series. Hashtag boycott The Bachelor. So they made a post, hashtag boycott The Bachelor. It's obviously picking up steam. And like I said, guys, this might be something completely out of your cul-de-sac of anything you've had to worry about, but it's important just to know that exists. Even if it's on a level that's got nothing to do with what you've got going in your life, you might be in just a Bachelor chat community that's all drama and fantasy suite nonsense. That's okay. Understand, where you are and why you can feel that way, where you don't have to address these issues. But also, let's not come at others for expecting more from The Bachelor, because it is more than just a smut show on ABC, on Monday nights. It is more than that. It's a conversation that's happening nationally. Now, I wanted to play this. This is what Mike had to say about the Chris Harrison interview with Rachel. Very interesting here. Let's play this. Mike Johnson.
You're right.
I'm just now listening to this Rachel Lindsay and Chris Harrison. I'm going to have some words when I get done with it because I'm only at 224. I just checked out the Chris and Rachel interview on Extra. Rachel, you were super eloquent in that. And you spoke about things that some people may not know about but need to hear. Chris, you disappointed me. The other young lady, Rachel, that is the subject of the conversation. I do think absolutely she needs her day to speak about how she feels. Chris said some things in there that were just not good, as simple as that. It's just not good. I mean, I can say so many crazier things that I'm not the happiest about. But Chris spoke about people like me that, speak and seemingly we want our voice to be heard. But all in all, I think that there is a double standard. I can give you so many examples, and yeah.
So what's important here? I thought that was over. There's 4 seconds left.
Not going to be as eloquent on this one.
Not going to be as eloquent on this one, which is okay. You don't have, here's the thing. Mike Johnson's a smart guy. You don't have to have all the answers to a layered, complicated 13-minute interview right away. But clearly you can see that his takeaway from the interview was charged. His takeaway from the interview was disappointed in Chris Harrison. I'm not speaking for Mike when I say this, but a lot of these contestants look up to Chris Harrison like a dad. He's been like their provider in a way. He's got them national exposure. He's done a lot to open doors for these people, but you can still be very critical of somebody if their actions don't line up with what you would hope that they would. Do you know what I mean? I think we got one final tab here. And just so you guys know, we're going to follow this story. It's important. If this isn't your tea, that's fine. Just leave a comment that shows empathy. That's all I ask. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Understand that we all should want equality. We all should be wanted to treat equally, but we can't assume that we're there. We just can't assume that in 2021 we're there. So you might have some things to say, but I just, for the sake of being extra redundant, I ask everybody to leave a comment as if you're trying to help your cousin, your neighbor, somebody that you care about, and let's not bash each other down. Do you understand? I hope we can do that. I also understand that by me asking that, it's asking for a lot. But I really think we need civility when we talk as strangers online. Some of the biggest problems we have in society are how we speak to strangers online. And it doesn't help us win any cases. It doesn't help us get our point across. So do me a favor, when you leave a comment, post a little heart, post a thumbs up, whatever it is. Just let's all, and because I'm going to have to be in the comment section, I don't want to have to turn comments off. What I'm learning as the channel's growing is I do a better job of talking it out to you guys than I do leaving comments. Leaving comments doesn't give us the benefit of the doubt. We're humans. We're supposed to use all of our senses to communicate to each other, not just texting. So I'm going to do my best to communicate that through the video itself. And I know this is a little wordy of me to say, but I am careful. I am careful with how I'm coming across because I understand here that the situation's not right. I understand here that a lot of growth needs to happen. And I understand there's a lot of the country that doesn't want to deal with this. So we have to look at why. And we have to try to do better without, I digress. Let's watch this last clip. If for whatever reason this doesn't show up in the final video, it's because I violated another copyright. But I think this one will show up. This is Lee at the men's tell-all.
NAACP to the KK. That's blasphemy.
Do you recognize the misogynistic comments, the sexism,
2017,
and the racism?
Lee's scandalous tweets surfaced during filming and caused a firestorm on and off set.
This is what's been talked about a lot. What's the difference between the NAACP and the KKK? One has a sense of shame to cover their racist faces. And I mean, just for me to read that out loud makes me feel unbelievably uncomfortable.
Yeah. That tweet was racist, and I denounce it. But you should have done this 2 months ago.
Please know that you could exit stage left and meet me backstage, and I'd be more than happy to give you a Black history lesson, a lesson on women's rights.
I said what I needed to say tonight.
It got really heated. It was a wild ride.
Host Chris Harrison telling us backstage the truth behind the controversy.
I'm sorry, but it's a little shocking that production wasn't looking at Lee's tweets.
I know. In all honesty, I asked the same question. The next day I called and I said, how is this a thing?
Yeah.
How did we not see that? And actually my first question was, did we?
And then,
And 100% I can tell you with all honesty, and this is embarrassing to say, we didn't know.
I should have been a better.
So ignorance isn't necessarily an excuse, but Chris Harrison says that he didn't know. How do you not know one of the contestants that you're going to put your multi-million-dollar show, you know, leverage your show's sort of like platform and bring a contestant onto that show? How do you not see those tweets? This is public information. So this was 5 years ago. So you hope that they've done better. But, you know, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to see the problematic history of what, you know, what existed in Rachael Kirkconnell's timeline. Now, the question is, are we separating ignorance from racism? Of course, they can be the same thing, but also at what point, at what age do we draw the line and say we're going to start judging someone for their actions? These are real questions that we're asking, folks. This isn't me projecting anything onto you. So I would love to hear your comments. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for this long episode here. And the story's not done. We're going to hear more. As soon as we have a breaking comment from Rachael Kirkconnell, we'll talk about it. And I think it'll lead to a discussion that's healthy for us all to have. Meanwhile, I know we have a lot of international people that watch the show, all the way from Norway to Ireland, Australia, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia. You guys are all over the world. I'd love to know what you guys think. Please leave a comment. We're kind of over here in the U.S. in some weird incubator, but I'd love to know your thoughts about all this as it all unfolds. And again, they said Rachael Kirkconnell was supposed to release a statement today, so we'll be waiting on that. Please hit the like button. And again, I sincerely mean this. Let's be as kind as possible to each other as we try to communicate. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.